He's got his £100 million yacht.
That's all. My car must be worth more than that.
Why can't you go on the yacht? What do you mean? Because you can go on the yacht and with the ocean. You can. You can. He's in Monaco.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Oh, right. We're up to the Daf Yud Amud Aleph, third line from the top. We're continuing a topic we started yesterday, and the topic is various complicated situations where a person's done b'dikas chametz and something's gone wrong. Yesterday we had two fundamental questions. Each question obviously has like secondary questions, but we started with two scenarios yesterday, and today we're going to do quite a lot more. There's more than 10 different scenarios, and all quite complicated. Each time, what the Gemara does is, the Gemara tries to compare the question to another place in Hilchos Tumah V'Tara or to any other topic to try and work out what the halacha would be. Let's just summarize quickly. Yesterday we had two questions. Question number one was, we had 9 piles of chametz and matzah, 9 piles of chametz, matzah, 1 pile of chametz, and the mouse took it. And what's the halacha? Does anybody remember? Very good. Did they take it from the piles, or did they take it from a piece which was separated from the piles? That was the halacha of one halacha. And the other question was, you had 2 piles. One was chametz, one was matzah, and it ran 2 mice into 2 different houses. So then what do we say? The chametz went into the house which has not been checked, and matzah went to the house which has been checked. Now we're going to have many other scenarios, and they're very complicated. Some of them sound very strange and not likely to be. I saw go down. It's very interesting. If you can work it out, I didn't manage. There's a Sefer Chok Yaakov and Tilla the David have a vehement argument regarding the following question. You have to tell me what you think logically. A person did b'dikas chametz. He checked his whole house top to toe, and he feels a sense of relief. Oh, he can enjoy his cup of tea without any guilt feeling. And then his wife points out to him, hey, in this cupboard, she found some chametz. Now, it's actually happened to be not necessarily definitely chametz, something which you didn't expect to see. Do you think now he has to check the house again? Or do you say? What? In Mavato, but there's a mitzvah of b'dikas chametz. Did he keep the mitzvah? Done the mitzvah, fine. Let's say she then comes to him a few minutes later, and another cupboard she finds another slice, but and then a third time, 3 times. No, it can happen. It can happen. Big house, and he was tired. He looked as best as he could. This is a very chomodic shaila which the Chok Yaakov and the David go about it hammer and tongues. And what they try and do is prove it from our Gemaras, from all the next scenarios which are what? It's not a shaila of kavua. The question is like this: Do we say that you did the bits of b'dikas chametz, and now those 3 pieces that you find you have to chuck, or do we say, if I can find 3 pieces after the b'dikas chametz, is it right? You never did b'dikas chametz, and now you have to start the whole thing from scratch. Oh, that's when they argue. And let's see if you can work it out, because they use this whole Gemara now, and they use every one of them tries to bring from different scenarios which the Gemara brings, which are slightly more rare, and to see if they can prove to this case. Let's see if you can do the same. What's wrong? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. No, there's a heck from one. Somebody's on the thing. Okay, so that's the Shaila Chok Yaakov and Tilla David and Machleikas, and you have to work out if you can see from the continuation of the Gemara a proof one way or the other. Says the Gemara, we're up to the 3rd line in Yehuda Amud Aleph. This is already the 3rd case. Each case has secondary case, like 9 and 1 was kavua and not, but this is the 3rd like new case. You've got 1 big pile of chametz. And there's 2 houses, both have been checked. A mouse came with shokar, took a piece and ran into one of the houses. But we don't know, did it go into the house of Reuven or to the house of Shimon? Reuven comes on and says, probably went into your house, Shimon. I don't need to do b'dikas chametz again. Shimon says, it probably went into your house, Reuven. I don't need to do b'dikas chametz again. So what would you say? Now, they both have a cheskas baduk. They both have a chazaka that have been checked, with the problem that there's a piece of bread in one of those 2 houses. Says the Gemara, Hanyu Shnei Shvinin, that's the same case as 2 paths. The Tanakh. We learned a Mishnah. Shnei Shvinin, there are 2 paths. Echad Tomei ve'echad Toy. We know for certain that one of the paths goes over a dead body, and that one of the paths does not. V'holach be'echad, when a person went on one of them, v'aso tahavis, and afterwards she touched something which is toy. His friend went, he went on the second path. So Reuven and Shimon both went on the path. There are two paths. One is Tommy, one is Toy. Reuven went on one, Shimon went on another, and they both touched something Toy. And now the question is, the things that they touched, is it Toy or Tommy? Tesis himself, when he asks the question, top of Yudam Udalef, why talk about such a complicated case? Why not talk? The question is now, again, got Reuven and Shimon. Reuven and Shimon both went on a path. One went on path A, one went on path B. And we know for certain that one of those paths is Tommy and one is Toy. So the question is, if each one comes along to base and asks the question, then we would say, Safik Tumah B'Shusavavim is Toy. But if they would both come into basin at the same time, what are we going to say to them? You're both Toy. Can't be. So today's asks the question, why are we discussing that they touch something Toy? Why are we not discussing them themselves? And Tesis says the human being himself were more machmir, because over a long term of time, he's likely to touch the same thing as the other person touched and definitely cause the problem. I've jumped a bit deep. Let's go back to the basics. We've got a question. Two paths, two people, they each walk on the path. If each one would come into basin by himself, what would basin say to him? Torn. The problem is that they can't both be torn. And this is an akdam we have to always remember. Sofik tumah. What's the halacha of sofik tumah? Does anybody remember? Very good. B'shusay yochid, it is tummy. B'shusam, it is toy. And there's absolutely no logic to it whatsoever. If you're walking down King's Road or Berry Road, and what happens is you're not sure if you touch a dead sheret, you're not sure. You are toy, even if it's 50-50. Oh, it's a sofik deraisa, sofik deraisa l'chumma. It's a gzeras hakosuv. It is a chayk that you'll become toy. But it's good to remember this because we come to sofik tumah b'shusavavim is toy. Sofik tumah. That's exactly the same scenario. You're in your dining room. You're not sure if you touch the sherets. Your dining room is a sofik, is a private area. And you're not sure if you touch the sherets, what's the din? You're Tommy. Sofik tumah b'shusayachit is Tommy. Sofik tumah b'shusayachit. The Rabbis, they're very so impressed that we're stopping all the things and we're coming to sit and learn. They're setting up fireworks for us. What? Why? You've been to the Ravad, though? It's because once a person's been to a Levaya, then it's impossible to ever get a thing. Again, Sofik Tumah B'Shusayachid is Tommy, Sofik Tumah B'Shusavavim is Toy. Do you know, Levi, you said already the halacha correctly. So where do we know it from? Where's the Yisodat from? Why is the Makor? Anybody remember? Get an extra cup of Coke from Soita, very good. Soita, the Torah says that the Sofik Ish is Tommy. Why? It's a Sofik Tumah. And she's always in the Shusayachid because she won't be Mezan in the Shusavavim, so we say Sofik Tumah Shusayachid is Tommy. Okay. No. Oh, anywhere which is not a Shusayachid is automatically Shusavavim. Okay. So that's now Shnei Shvirin. Let's go back to the Mishnah. Two paths way. Echad Tomei beechad toy bolach beechad ben vasatayis bochav v'lach v'shni vasatoy. So Yudoima. Im nishalu ze b'fnei atzmo. If each one comes to base on his own, to hoven shnei to hoven the toy. Shnei the vasachas. If they both come at the same time, to me. Rabbi Yosef benkach or benkach to me, they're always Tom. And Omar Rava elaborates. V'itim Rabbi Yochanan. The vasachas tivako to me. If they both come into base in the same second, everybody agrees they're Tommy. If they come one after the next, Reuven comes and says, I want to tell you a story. I went on one path, my friend Shimon went on another path, and we both touched something. We want to know what's the halacha. So since he's asking about him and his friend, and as Rashi says, we can't pass it to him your toy, even though we'd like to, because it's Safik Tumah Shusavavim. But we can't say that to him. Why can't we say to him your toy? Because he's asking about himself and his friend. Had he only asked about himself, he wants to know. He's asking. He's asking why you can come to base. You want to know the psak for your friend. So therefore, we have to say Tommy. Says Rashi. Rabbi Yosef compares it to the same time. That means like this. Comes out Rashi the same story. You've got two houses. Reuven and Shimon both check the house for chametz. After a whole night of working very hard, a mouse comes and takes a slice of bread into one of the two houses. We don't know which. Says Rashi, what would the halacha be? Says Rashi like this. If each one comes to basin by himself and says, I checked my house and the mouse came into one of the two houses, what will we say to him? If each one comes by himself, you don't have to check again. You don't have to check. I do. But there's the Gabi Sofik Tumah will machmir b'shusayachid, and then by Sofik Tumah shusayachid. But here we don't need to, because you got a cheskas with the boduk. You got a cheskas boduk. So if you do not need to check again, if they both come into basin, if they both come into basin, that's when the Sofik Tumah with the cheskas. That's why we say by Sofik Tumah shusayachid that it's toy. Let's get again. A person comes into the Vov and he says, I only want to know about I'm asking about myself. I checked the house, he checked his house, and now I've got a question. So I've got the question I need to know for myself. What do I need to do now? The Vov will say to him, you can go back to bed, you're fine. If his friend comes in at the same time as him, they both come into basin at the same time, and they both say the story, we both checked our houses, and mouse came into one of two houses, what would it be? Both have to check again. What happens if one of them comes into basin? Think carefully now. And he asks for himself and his friend. What would you say the halacha is? Oh, it's machlekes Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yossi, then the halacha is that they need to check again. According to Rabbi Yehuda, they do not need to check again. That's how Rashi establishes the halacha. So that was shaila number 3. We now got a 4th shaila. Sofik ol, sofik lo ol. A mouse came into a chotza, that's a courtyard, and we're not sure if it went into any of the houses. We don't know. And here it's a subtle, it's difficult to accept. We'll try and explain it outside this like this. Imagine you go into a valley, and in the valley, let's say there are 5 fields. 5 fields. One of the fields, we know that there's a dead person inside it, which means that if you walk along that field, let's say it wasn't covered properly, therefore you'll be going to come Tommy. Shittas Chachamim is that if a person says, I walked around this valley, but I don't know if I walked in the field, a valley is considered the Rishus HaYochid because there's not a lot of people walking around. Talk about a time when it's a secluded time, when it's not like it's a time when people don't like you to walk in their fields, etc. So it's a secluded time. So the Chachamim say, since you don't know if you went over the dead body, and it's a suffix Rishus HaYochid, you're Tommy. Comes along Rabbi Lessen says a very interesting svar. He says like this: Sfek Sfeika means if you have a double suffix, you would be taught, right? If you would have a suffix, let's say there's a suffix if there's a dead body there altogether, and it's a suffix if you walked around there, then you're taught. Sfek Sfeika is always taught. It's only because this one suffix you're taught, but a double suffix you'd be taught. Says Ablez, I'll make it into a double suffix. You want to hear how I make a double suffix? It's like this: suffix whether I went into the field. And if I went into the field, it's a suffix whether I went over the dead body. So it's a sfek. Now, why did the Chum not say it's a double suffix? The answer is because the suffix can be said in one go. Meaning, the suffix can be said, did I walk over the dead body? That means even Rabbi Lezer would agree, if the whole valley was one field, huge field, and you're walking around, even Rabbi Lezer would agree it's one suffix, because it's a suffix, did I walk over the dead body? Says Rabbi Lezer, because the whole valley is split into many fields, so therefore over here, even though there's no logic to it again, because there's no difference in chance, if you ever go to probability, if there's one valley which is 100 kilometers, 100 acres, or 5 fields and each one's got 20 acres, there's no logic to say that one's a sfek and one's a suffix. There's no logic for such a thing. But it says Rabbi Lezer, when there's 5 fields and each one's only 20 acres, you can make it into a sfek. I'll make it into something like this. Suffix, did I go into the field which has the dead body? Because there are 5 fields. And if I went into that field, who says I went over the dead body? So it's a sfek. What sfek is that? The suffix is, did you walk over the dead body or not? So therefore, it's only one suffix. Says the Gemara, the same question by this mouse. The mouse walked in to this whole area, to this courtyard. But we don't know if it walked into my house. So I can say like this. According to the Chachamim, it's one suffix. Did a mouse come into my house or not? We're machlim. But over here, where according to Rabbi Lezer will say I make a double suffix. Maybe the mouse came into the chotza, means maybe it came into the neighborhood of my house, and maybe it didn't go into my house, maybe it went into the neighbor's house. Why is it 3? What do you say? Right. Yeah, I've explained it. We couldn't taste at least the shvel Maisa, because we passed it earlier that suffix to upon the kula anyway. But Maisa, I'm explaining this. The what's the word for it? What's the siyashav? What did you say? Oh. Again, let's get it. Let's try to clarify. Okay, let's see the Gemara side.
There's no chotzer because how does it say? Only because it's
That's right. That's right. Only because there's that's right. Oh, very good. If it's only because it's split properties. Okay. Says the Gemara. Sofik all Sofik all. How do you biko with to the blessed rabbanon? It's not hanichnas le biko. Something goes to a valid moisek shomim in the winter. Why in the winter? Because in the winter it's just say yochit. Because in the winter things are starting to grow. People don't like you to trample their fields. In the summer, we're tumor besod of plonis. I don't know if I went into that field. I mean, show you Suffolk Biotoi, Suffolk Mago Tommy. If it's a Suffolk, if I went anywhere, meaning it's a Suffolk, whether maybe I didn't even go into the field Yotoy, because it's a Svek Sveka. Suffolk Mago, if the only question is, Suffolk Mago Tumor, if the only question is, did I touch the Tumor? You are not able to split it into two, then it is Tomei, your Tomei. Second, Ma'aser Rashi at the end finishes off that even the Chachamim say that in this case you'd be toy, you wouldn't have to b'dikas chametz again because it's a suffix to rabbanon. But this gets into a very big problem that sometimes the Gemara calls it a suffix to rabbanon, sometimes a suffix to Raisa. The Rambam himself asks the kasha, takes himself leaves it shver. Look at the third, and the answer is that b'dikas chametz isn't to rabbanon; it's a takala to rabbanon. But because it's of a chashash to Raisa, sometimes they gave it the chumrah of the Raisas. Okay, let's go to the next shayla. All ubodak v'loyashkach. A person went into the house. That means a mouse went into the house with a slice of bread, and then afterwards I do another bedika, and I don't find it. Plugte to amer v'rabbanon. Machlokes on mer v'rabbanon. Oh, that's a very, very good question. Tais asks the kasha. Tema, that's the 1, 2. There's a fifth thesis. What in the world would you do? Tais is very bothered. He says, forget about the machlokes. I don't want to know the halacha. What would you do? A mouse came into my house. I checked. I can't find it. What am I supposed to do? Tais leaves it very shver. The Steinberg suggests, and he says the fact that Tais didn't think of his answer is a problem on his answer. It's a simple answer. Maybe you should be forbidden to move into your house over Pesach.
We can't see it.
Wait a second. What did I tell you? What is it?
Nobody, right.
So what? But if the mouse came into my house and I can't find a slice of bread, so we have to assume there's a slice of bread somewhere in my house. If I stay in my house over Pesach, at night, in the middle of the night, be hungry and forget it's Pesach and eat the slice of bread.
Find it.
But we know there's a slice of bread in the house.
No,
Okay.
Yeah, if you can find it when you're asleep.
You can't find it. If you've looked for it, you can't find it then.
No, we know that there's a slice of bread in my house. I can't find it.
Yes,
So today's ask the question, what in the world am I supposed to do? So Steinberg says, why did Tais not come? Again, let's go to search. The Gemara is going to say machlokas. What's the din if a mouse comes in the house and you don't know where it is? Tais' question, what difference does it make what the machlokas is? What are you going to do about it? Says the Steinberg, Kilas Yaakov says, I would suggest that you shouldn't be allowed to come into your house. It says the Kilas Yaakov is a right from here that there's no issa to go into a house when there's chametz inside. You're allowed to leave. He discussed it. Okay, we'll come to Tais maybe in a moment. Let's first get the machlokas. It's a very interesting Gemara. The Gemara says like this: imagine we have 3 piles of stones. 3 piles of stones. And somebody's buried under one of the 3. Let's say you tell me I buried somebody under one of the 3, so I can't remember which pile. So I opened up the first pile and I can't find a dead body. So is that area Torah or Tomei? Torah. I open up the second pile and I can't find a dead body. That area, the second area, is also Torah because now I know. I open up the third area and I don't find a dead body. What's the halacha now? They're all Tomei. We had it in Nidl. They're all Tomei. Why? Because now there's obviously something gone wrong. So the Gemara says, actually according to Chachamim it's story. We'll see. The Chachamim say it's story. According to the Shitta that it's Tomei, so we see over here that the fact that you checked and you didn't find is not good enough. Check again or look again, keep looking. That would be another answer, by the way, to Tais' kasha. What should you do? You ask Kasha, what should you do? Maybe keep looking. Keep looking. You can't stop looking. Let's go inside. I don't. Olo bodak. Person. A mouse came in and he looked for the yashkach. If there's a cheskas tumah there, you've got to be always tumah until you find it. You have to just check until you get to unbroken earth or to a rock. Once you find that, you're no longer tumah. There's no longer tumah. Right? So it's very interesting. According to the Chachamim, you're okay. I did my b'dikas chametz. The fact that I know there's a slice of bread in the house is okay. According to Amir, it's no good. You either have to keep on looking, or you're not allowed into your house, or there's a many Rishonim that say that Amir over here is Meiko. The Gemara doesn't mean it's Machik Me'abon, and the Gemara just compares it. almost like a Rabbanan. Rashi says this. So there's different shots in what you'd actually do, but the Gemara compares it to that shayla. Oh, we'll see later. Just do mice eat the bread. Says the Gemara another story. I don't know what number this was. This is, I think, 7th. All ubodak be'ashkach. A mouse came into your house with a slice of bread, and you find it after 1 minute. You are thrilled, but then you get nervous. No. How do you know that slice of bread is the one which the mouse brought in? Maybe the mouse brought in a different piece of bread, and you found the piece which you didn't check. You're not OCD. You're trying to make yourself. All ubodak be'ashkach. Plugta d'vei v'shum gamliel. The Tanya. Sodesh nevad bo keva. Imagine you got a field and the cave is lost there. And somebody goes inside into his tummy. Why? Because there's a cave. If you find a burial spot, Rebbe says the cave you find, that's the cave that's lost. You have to check the entire field. That means, let's say I tell you I buried somebody in this field, and you walk through and you suddenly find a body. You say, oh, that must be the one which you ought to put there. Maybe not. Maybe there was many bodies there. You're happy to find one of them. Maybe you have to check the whole field. And the same question, you checked your house for chametz. You find that a mouse took one in. According to Rebbe, you say that that's it. You found the slice. That is the mouse's slice. According to Gamliel, you have to check the whole house again. Because how do you know that's the slice that was left there originally? No, we're at the beginning to discuss this a little bit. Because these are all the places that Tilla the David and the Chayk Yaakov argue that question we started off with. It's not true. Here it's worse. Here it's much worse. You can't really compare it. If you do the chametz, you find a slice in the house, you've got no reason to assume there's more. Here, a mouse came in. So you don't know where the mouse took it. The fact that you find one slice doesn't mean you've got no idea if it's the same slice.
It's the same mouse. There, it could be anybody, it could be hundreds of bodies. This mouse came in.
But you didn't see. You only saw it take a slice, but you didn't see which slice where they took it.
In that time, it could have a different slice.
No, not the mouse. Maybe when you found the slice of bread, it's because you never did the chametz earlier properly.
He didn't find it in the mouse's.
No, you find it in the mouse's mouth. Sorry.
No, you found it.
Sorry. Maybe I should have made it clear. You find you see a mouse running into your house with a slice of bread in the mouth. Maybe I thought it was obvious. And then you find a slice of bread somewhere in the house, not with the mouse. The mouse is gone, disappeared. Luckily, thankfully to your wife. What? What did he say? No, because if you find a slice of bread, no, because you already did b'dikas chametz. You finished b'dikas. Because over here it is worse. Once the mouse came into the house, so now you know that your whole house, as every single place in the house, could be a slice of bread. So your confidence that there's no chametz in any corner of the house is gone. Before you were sure, but now you can't be sure anymore. So now you find one slice of bread. How can you be sure that's the slice which the mouse brought in? In the Achtish, I can imagine there's a lot more to be said, and not that I know it all, I'm say, but it's a good excuse to say I'm running out of time, but I don't know more. In the Achtish, you put 9 slices. Umotzo Esa, and you go and find 10. A person puts a mona of Maisa Sheni money in a drawer. Oh, we'll see. Umotzo Mosai, and you found double the amount of money. So, Rebbe says that the fact that you found more means that the Maisa Sheni money was there and more money came. That money is gone and this is new money. According to the Chachamim. No, you put in your drawer. You put a silver coin in your drawer, Maisa Sheni money. Yeah. 1 silver coin. You come back a few days later, you find there's 2 silver coins in the drawer. So you got a question, what's that status of the second coin? Do we say that you not transfer? You can. According to the Chachamim, they say that since you put 1 and you found 2, is a proof that 1's been taken, and this 2 is a different 2 altogether. You don't see the logic. Why not? Yeah. You put 1 and now there's 2. So why is the 2? Why is there 2? Must be that, let's say, for example, your wife needed the money, took it, and you put 2, and there's no shaykhs between the 1 and the 2. No, it does. Because maybe that money was used by your wife to buy maisa. And therefore over here comes the huge chumrah. If you put 9 pieces out and you find 10, it could be a different 10. Wow. We're not talking about you put them around your house. You put a box for next morning. You want to eat breakfast, 9 slices of toast. And you put 9 slices of bread for breakfast for your next morning. And the next morning you come and you find there's 10 slices of bread there.
Well, we're assuming someone's taken a 9.
That's right. We're assuming that 9 was taken away. And therefore 10 was brought there. Oh, we'll see. We won't discuss more cases. I don't want to. Oh. Okay, you put down 10 and what's the Tesha, you only find 9. High new safe, that's the safe. The tiny Niach Mosam, if left 200, and what's the money, find 100. Rebbe says one was taken. The Chachamim say the same logic. If you put 10 slices out for your breakfast and then you only found 9, you've got to look again. Because we assume that if you put 10 slices for breakfast, so now you only find 9. According to the Chachamim, what's the logic? That somebody must have taken the 10 and put it for 9. You know, they say a famous joke about a person calls up the wall at 4 o'clock in the morning. And the wife calls up. He says, my husband, I had 10 slices. My husband can only find 9. What should I do? What should we do? Come with exactly Nusach version. But basically what's happened is, the question is, should she tell her husband where she put the 10? Of course you can tell him. The mom starts thinking that she's only found 9, this one's missing. But she knows where it is, she's not telling it. Again, Maisa comes out for you. Rashi.
So I'm not the couple sister. There's no way a woman would do that.
So if you've put out 10 and you find 9, it's a machlokes of the Chachamim. Right. That means the question is like this: if you put something aside and you find something else, the question is that the thing which you put aside with a small adjustment, or is it a new thing? Let's go right because we'll go to them. So you're done with base top of the page. You left your bread for breakfast in one corner of the house, and then you found it in a different corner of the house. And the same question: do we say that's the same bread and you're okay? Or do we say that no, it's not the same bread, and therefore you have to check your whole house again? Plug to the time. You're right, very good. Yes, Mishmor points that out. I should have said it. Mishmor says, of course, if you've got a sign on it, let's say your box has got, you know that it's the same bread, you've got no chashash. We're talking about when you don't recognize the pieces.
Why would you assume
No, there's no bread there.
It's a piece.
So how did it move from one side to the other?
Mostly, we know that in your house it didn't happen like that.
A person has a spade in his house and got lost. Habayis Tommy, your entire house is Tommy. Imagine never you have a break-in and the spade gets lost, your entire house is Tommy. Why? I assume that a Tommy person broke into your house, took the spade, and for all I know, he touched your bowls, he touched your plates, so everything in the house is Tommy. No. No, again, there was an axe, there was a spade or an axe in the house, and it got stolen. So how did it get stolen? Must be somebody came into your house. Who's more likely to break into your house? A Tommy person is very likely a Tommy person was. Once we assume that a Tommy person didn't go by himself, the spade never left us. So you always say to your children, you can't find the shoes in the morning. You always say to them, your shoes were where you left them last night. Nobody came, no giraffes walked in the middle of the night, picked them up and moved them to another part of the house. So if a spade is missing, what happened? Again, it must have come in. So therefore, once we know somebody's been into your house, everything in your house needs tabling because for all you know, we came to you think this stuff, this is all over the top. But nowadays, with the thing Corona, people would, if you see something, you get very nervous. People tell you things. For all you know, you lent it to somebody, you forgot about it. Or maybe you moved it from one corner of the house to the other and you forgot it. The thing was, we never talked about moving from one corner to the other. Till now, we only talked about if it disappears altogether, and how can you suddenly say? Answers the Gemara. There's two different topics discussed over here. One where the spade disappeared, and one where the spade stayed in place, stayed in the house, but moved from one end of the room to the other. That's two different shilas. You have to add the following words. If it got lost, the whole house is Tommy. Or you have to in one corner and we find a different corner by his tummy. Or if you find it, either if the spade is missing, or if it's moved from one corner to the other, in either case, the whole house is tummy. Because the only way it could have happened is if somebody came into your house and did it. And since you don't know who came into your house, you have to assume it's a tummy person. And therefore, everything in your house, it could be a touch, so it's all tummy.
How often you put them all down and you come back?
We're talking about where you're reasonably sure that it was in one place. Oh. Right. That means you're pretty sure that you've left it there. The whole house is toy.
That I say, so the same thing you've got to buy chametz as well. So again, if you find chametz in one corner of the room, find it in another corner of the room, according to the chachamim, you have to bedikas chametz from scratch, because you have to assume that you don't assume that it's you have to assume that bit of chametz is scattered around the house somewhere, and this is new chametz, and therefore you have to now look for chametz again. That's the shittas chachamim.
If you find your spade, you have to assume that someone else you spade in your house.
Oh,
Or is there any different chametz?
no, if you find a spade, no, we find in one corner to the other corner, so then you do have to assume according to the chachamim that maybe somebody moves it. A mouse came into your house, the kiko b'fiv a slice of bread, you follow the tin, the motzah piru, and you find crumbs. So Thurs, for some reason, he says on the next case, but the show says the same case. Look at Thurs number 3, third Thurs. We're discussing where the crumbs, if you add up all the crumbs, it comes to the equivalent of the entire slice of bread, right? So the question is like this. You see a mice running into your house with a slice of bread, and then you find crumbs across the floor, and you add up all the crumbs, it's the same as a slice of bread. So what's the question? The question is, are those crumbs from the slice of bread? Or maybe the mouse went, put the slice of bread in one of your cupboards, and these crumbs are from a different place. Says the Gemara, you need to check the whole house again. Mice don't make crumbs. What do? They hide it or eat it, but they don't make crumbs. But if a child comes into your house, why? Because you found enough crumbs to fill up the whole loaf. Children, they like to make crumbs. So therefore, they like to make mess. So therefore, if you find enough crumbs that it fills up, it says Thurs, but if the crumbs do not equivalent to the loaf, you can't rely on the fact that you ate some of it. You have to be choshesh lechumra and check your house again. So if you see a child come into your house with a loaf of bread, a loaf of bread weighs about 700 grams, and then you find chametz crumbs, you have to see if the crumbs are equivalent to that, it's fine. If it's less, then you don't know if you ate it. What that asks even more complicated questions. If a mouse came in the kiko b'fiv, and he's got a slice of bread. The mouse leaves the kiko b'fiv, he's got a loaf of bread in his house. Now, we don't we say one went in, one went out, it's fine. Maybe one mouse took in one loaf, and another mouse took in a different loaf, and maybe you still got a loaf of bread in your house. If you say yes, it makes sense that it's the same mouse took out the same loaf of bread. That's the logical thing. A white mouse came in, but a black mouse took it out. It's not the same mouse. So then it's worse, because when it's the same mouse, you can say to yourself, it makes sense, it's leaving with the same bread. But it's a different mouse, it's slightly worse. Do we say, hi, must be a different slice of bread? Maybe the mouse grabbed it from the first one. Maybe mice don't steal from each other, because not one is not stronger than the other. So it's unlikely that he stole it from each other. So therefore, it's slightly likely to be a different slice of bread. If a mouse comes in with a loaf of bread in his mouth, but a weasel goes out, and with it, it's got a slice of bread in its mouth. And weasel is much stronger than a mouse, so it makes sense that it pinched it off the mouse. Maybe it's a different one. If it's true that the weasel stole it from the mouse, it wouldn't have just stolen the bread. What would he have done? Taken the mouse as well. And the fact that you can't see the mouse in the mouth of the weasel is a proof that the weasel never took it from the mouse. This is a new slice of bread. If it's true, it would have found the mouse in its mouth. If a mouse goes in with a loaf with bread in its mouth, it's got like this. It's got a mouse and a slice of bread in the mouth of the weasel, but not the bread in the mouse's mouth. It's two separate things. In the weasel's mouth, it's got a mouse plus a slice of bread. Must be the same slice. Why is the bread not in the mouth of the mouse? The fact that it's come out of it is a raya that's a separate slice of bread, because should be a susa who got scared, it dropped the bread. The shockness of the mouse took it. Teku. We have to wait for Eliyahu Navi to tell us the answer. Now, the Thurs says The Gemara doesn't tell us how to paskin. So how should I paskin? Asks the tool, what should I do to paskin? What would you say if you're writing the tool? What would you say? All these questions, what would you say? What? Safek to Abba. They go Safek to Abba the Kula. The tool says slightly better. Oh, it says even better. Okay, it says like this. If you didn't do bittul to your chametz, so you've got Safek to Raisa, Bali or Bali Motzah, so you have to then take do bedika. But if you've done bittul, let's say it's too late. Why can't you do bittul? Let's say it's after Chatzos and Pesach. So then you're going to have to bedika again because you can't do bittul after Chatzos. So if you've already done bittul, it's only a Safek to Abba and Safek to the Kula. If you haven't done bittul, then it's Safek to Raisa the Chumma, and you're going to have to start the whole house again if you find the mice. And you say these cases don't happen. The mice said, oh, shilas, as I pointed out to you, this shilas, again, we don't have so much time, but this is the kudah. If you do chametz, if you do b'dikas chametz, and then you find that there is chametz in the house, does that prove that you need to do b'dikah again? Similar kind of complicated shilas. Boy Robert, kika b'shmei kova, a loaf of bread very, very high up. Let's say on the top of a very big cupboard. Tzorich sulam lo yivido in tzorich. Do you have to take it down, or can you just leave it there? Minon do we say? Chazal didn't expect you to work so hard. You're never going to get to this bread anyway. It's the top of a cupboard. You're never going to reach it. Somebody told me that he was in the shul. And they came up to Shaila. I remember when it happened. And they throw sweets from the ladies into the men. I'll tell you where it was. It was an old Torah, the old shul. And they throw pekalach, and they used to get stuck. Oh, do you have an old Torah sometimes? They used to get stuck on top of different places. And you don't always to get hold of it. So do you have to go and get the chametz out of there? Why? Oh. No, the problem is that Chazal will mechayev you as a mitzvah of dikas chametz to do your best to get rid of the chametz. So for maybe you should have. Oh. Do you have to unscrew radiators? Do you hear the question? Do you have to unscrew radiators? See? Oh, he's found a practical application. I'm sure you take down your house completely and then you build it from scratch. No, I'm sure. Yeah, every year. Maybe the house, maybe the thing, not the house will down. Maybe the chametz will fall down. You'll come to it. Maybe the chametz will fall down. Then kick up a boy. What happens if it falls into a pit? Do you need to go down with a ladder? Why are we here slightly better? From a pit, it's never going to come up. From the top of a cupboard, there's a small chance it'll fall down. But from a pit, there's no chance it'll come up. So therefore, it's more lenient. Sometimes a person needs to do something in the pit. And he'll end up going down in the pit, even if it's a rare occasion, and he'll come to it. You can see it. No, there's no value of raw because it's done bittul. But the question is it mechuyev to try and get it out? Is that the job? If there's a slice of bread in the mouth of a snake, you got a snake in your house, right? So that's a slice of bread. Do you need to get a person who chava over here? Not a Talmud Chacham, it's somebody who knows how to train snake tamer or charmer. Or Chazal will mechayev you to work. To spend money take you, and the tool says again the same cheshbon that if you did bittul it's okay, if not. Now you asked this question about radiator. So I saw you brings out a chashukei chemet, slightly different kind of question. We've had many times, many times that you only need to check for chametz in a place where chametz is brought in. What happens if you never bring chametz there, but once or twice a year or a few times a year you eat chametz there? Is that enough? Now, regarding the radiator, of course, it's not a problem because at the end of the day, you're not going to ever get to the radiator. You're not going to... Yes, but you're never going to get the chametz out. How are you going to get the chametz out of the radiator? Yes, but you're not going to unscrew it on Pesach. No, I'm just saying like this. Here, the Gemara only talks about cases where it's likely that you will be able to get a hold of the chametz on Pesach. Here, not. I said these are questions. So I said these are good questions. What happens if once a year you use a certain area for chametz? What do you say? If the radiator falls off, I hear. What happens if the radiator falls off? I hear. Okay. Okay. So you have to do bits of the thing. And you'd Mishnah. We haven't got so much time. I won't get to this Mishnah. So we have a machlokes in the next Mishnah, and the Gemara changes its mind completely what the machlokes is. So we have to start off with the first having on the Gemara. I'll first explain according to what he wants originally. Yehuda says, you have to check the night of the 14th, and again on the 14th, and again when you burn it. You have to do B'dikas Chametz 3 times. This is all in the Hamana. The Gemara eventually changes Shittas of Yehuda. If you didn't check in the morning, in the night, check in the morning. You should check on Yom Tov. Now here we have a fascinating machlekes Rashi and Tosfos. Look at Rashi. What does it mean? Let's finish off. You should check after the time. We'll stop here. Let's see Rashi. That's the 6th hour. Rashi explains Shittas Chachamim is what? That you should check the Soich HaMoed is in the 6th hour. Ach HaMoed is only after the 6th hour. After, that means after the, till Pesach. But you don't check on Pesach at all. According to Rashi, you don't check on Pesach at all. Let's see to bottom Tosfos. Earlier we called it Shas Habil. The Mishnah, the beginning of the Mishnah calls it Shas Habil. The 6th hour is the time of burning it. If according to the, we pass like Tosfos, so the word B'Soich HaMoed means during Pesach. Lach Moed means after Pesach. Meaning, if you didn't do B'dikas Chametz before Pesach, you do it on Pesach. You didn't do B'dikas Chametz on Pesach, you do B'dikas after Pesach. Why in the world would you do B'dikas Chametz after Pesach? What's it going to help anybody? The answer is because Chametz Shavuot of Pesach, and you might come to eat it. So therefore, you have to check after Pesach. But Rashi's shit is B'dikas Chametz is not because you might come to eat it. Rashi's shit is B'dikas Chametz because of Bal Yiror. And Bal Yiror after Pesach, there's nothing. So Rashi had to explain Acha Moed doesn't mean after Pesach. Acha Moed means after the 6th hour. So Moed is the 6th hour. So the machlekes we had in the Masechta, what's Pshat machlekes Rashi is why we do B'dikas Chametz makes machdaf K'min over here. And the Ma'aseh we pass if a person could ever do B'dikas Chametz after before Pesach, it is on Pesach, not on Pesach. He does it after Pesach. That what? Yes, Tes Kasha is what about Biur? The word Biur, beginning of the Mishnah says Biur, then it says Moed, and you're changing the word Moed to mean Biur. Says the Mishnah Bashai, what you need to go for your next morning breakfast, and the Yehuda Betzilo, you should put it privately. You should need to check again. And the Gemara early asked the Kasha, but we're not scared about mice. So why do you have to put it to the private spot? The Gemara gives 3 answers. The Gemara doesn't say George. What's the Gemara say? You might see a mouse coming in front of you. You don't remember the Gemara? You might see a mouse coming and taking in front of you. Or you might find that you had 10 slices, now you've only got 9. Or according to Abaya, that once it comes to the morning, the mice get more hungry, and then you do have to be choshesh for mice. Okay. It says the Gemara like this. The Gemara haven't understood that Rabbi Yehuda tells us you have to do B'dikas Chametz 3 times. My time to Rabbi Yehuda. The Torah says 3 times get rid of Chametz. What are the 3 psukim? Lo yirah lecha Chametz. You should see Chametz. Another pasuk is Shivas Yomim Soy Lo Yimotze B'Voteichem will not be found in your house. And finally, that you have to get rid of Chametz. So if you look at Rashi, let's see the first Rashi. So there are 3 expressions: Ve'ir, seeing; Metzia, finding; Rashbasa. Since it's 3 expressions, therefore you have to do B'dikas Chametz 3 times. What? A lot of women pass like this. Can you imagine? We would have nightmares. Says the Chasam Sofer about that I really, really enjoyed it. Afterwards, I saw somebody writing, it's a beautiful word of Chasam Sofer. He says, when did Rabbi Yehuda say you should do B'dikas Chametz? 3 times. What are the 3 times? The night, the morning, and Shas Biur. What are the 3 expressions? So he says, the 3 expressions, Ve'ir, Metzia, Ashbasa. In the night of the thing, you have to look for it, which is Metzia, to find it. In the morning, you don't need to look for it because it's bright daylight. You can just see it. It's Ve'ir. B'Shas Biur, what are you doing? You're destroying it. He says the 3 expressions fit beautifully into the 3 times that Yehuda says you have to do B'dikas Chametz. Ve'ir, Metzia at the night, Ve'ir in the morning, and Ashbasa by the midday. But says the Gemara, that's not Pshat and Rabbi Yehuda altogether. Masiv Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Kol Shli Bodak Shalish Ba'am, Shuman Yiboitek. Rabbi Yehuda is not coming to tell you to check 3 times. You misunderstood the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda is going to tell you something else. You should check at night. You didn't check at night, check in the morning. You didn't check in the morning, check by Shas Biur. But don't check later. And the Chachamim say, yes, you do check later. What's the Svar Machlekes of Yehuda Chachamim? Why would they argue, should you check later or not? No, why about what about El Pesach? Yehuda says only check by the 6th hour. After that, don't check. Why not? Why would it says don't check the chametz? Say yes, check. Better than that. God, why does Rabbi say don't check? Because if once it's the midday, you're not allowed to eat chametz. If you're going around with a candle and feather looking for your chametz, the Pesach afternoon, what will you end up doing? You might come to eat the chametz. So therefore, better we shouldn't do bedikas chametz in case you might come to eat it. The chametz say no, we're not choshesh shall come to eat it while you're looking for it. So you got a sadistic machlekes over here. Not that you have to check it 3 times going to Abidah chametz say only once. Everybody agrees you only check once. Abidah says these are the only 3 times. The Chachamim come along and say no, there's more than 3 times. It's actually 3 times plus Erev Pesach plus Pesach and even after Pesach. Oh. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that Chazal had to choose between 2 problems. One is that if you do b'tikas chametz, you may come to eat it. Another problem is you may come to, if you don't do b'tikas chametz, you may come to everybody while matzah. Rabbi Yehuda felt that Chazal were more concerned you might be over the issue of eating chametz than this. The more we'll discuss more in detail later. But this is the one. Rabbi Yehuda agrees that Chatchila would want you to do b'tikas chametz, but because the chashash you might come to eat chametz is so terrible, would rather you don't look for the chametz, because you come to look for it, you might find a nice piece of cake and then say, oh goody, and then go and someone eat it. Why did we not say after Pesach? You mean the Kunt of Yehuda that and they're asking? No, he's asking like this. After Pesach, what's the problem? No, that's just not. Not allowed to eat after Pesach. No, she's still not allowed to eat after Pesach. Even after Pesach, you're not allowed to eat. You're right, yes. Even after Pesach, you're not allowed to eat it. So if you're looking for the chametz after Pesach, you might come to find it, you might come to eat it. So we should never look for it. No, so Rabbi says if you don't look for it, you never found it till now, you maybe never see it, it's better to leave it. Let's go inside. That brings another version which is almost identical. In one of these 3 times, Rabbi Yehuda saying if you haven't checked at night, check in the morning. If you haven't checked in the morning, check in the afternoon. And in the midday. And before the Issa check, but once it's Asa, don't we're not going, so they might come to eat. The machlekes is, are we choishesh that you might come to eat while you're looking for the chametz or not? Okay, we're going to stop here because it's a new topic and it doesn't goes on to a few minutes. It's a shame. So we've got machlekes of Yehuda and Chachamim, and this goes on and on. Are we choishesh that in the process of looking for the chametz, that once you're touching it and looking for it and gathering it, you might come to eat it? The chametz say, no choishesh. Keep on looking for chametz. Yehuda says we are choishesh. Very good. Okay, atzlacha. Very good. Shkoyach, everybody. What? Yeah, what's up? Does he eat bread? Why not? Oh, eats mice. Yep. With bread, that's sticky, yeah.